You know the story. On a lonely road, in some crumbling castle, or maybe by a dark riverbank, you might just see her, this solitary figure in a white dress. She's one of the world's most famous ghosts, the White Lady. But who is she really? Today, we're going to pull back the veil on this legendary spirit to understand what she wants and why her story continues to haunt us generation after generation.
A long time ago on a dark and stormy night. That's a phrase that just promises a shiver down your spine, right? And this version, it doesn't disappoint. It's the classic opening to a local legend that has all the right ingredients for a great ghost story, and it is the perfect place for us to begin.
All right, so our story starts on a winding, pretty spooky stretch of road near Owego, New York. It's known, and this is no joke, as Devil's Elbow. And for well over a century, it's been the official haunting ground of its very own White Lady. What's so fascinating to me is how this ghost has kind of adapted over time. Back in the early 1900s, people would report seeing a proper Victorian woman in a horse-drawn carriage. Now, you fast forward to the 1980s, and she's completely changed with the times. Now she's a bride, or maybe a prom queen, hitching a ride in a car, a figure that modern teens would instantly recognize. The core spirit is the same, but her story keeps getting a modern update. But even with all these changing details, the basic structure of the tale is a textbook example of the vanishing hitchhiker legend. A driver offers a ride, the mysterious passenger just vanishes, and then the driver finds out they've just had an encounter with the dead. It's a classic formula, and it's absolutely key to understanding this ghost's power. But here's where it gets really interesting. This isn't just some story made up out of thin air. The White Lady of Devil's Elbow has a dark and very real history tangled up in her mythical roots. Just look at how this unfolds. So, around 1832, a young woman is murdered. Decades go by, and then stories of a White Lady start to pop up. And then, a full 100 years after the crime, her skull is discovered, cementing that link between a real-life tragedy and the folklore. It's almost as if the ghost story itself was trying to keep the memory of a forgotten victim alive. And this is where you can see how a legend gets shaped by the people who tell it. See, one version of the murder involves a couple who were killed over a cow, but the story that sticks, the one that gets passed down, it's about a lone woman attacked by a stranger. So why the change? Well, as a cautionary tale, the image of a vulnerable woman all alone is way more powerful. To make the story more terrifying, the husband just gets edited out. Okay, so let's zoom out for a second. The ghost of Devil's Elbow might be a local celebrity, but it turns out she's part of this massive, global family of spirits who all share a very similar story.
And believe me, she is not alone. Just compare our White Lady to Resurrection Mary in Chicago, another famous vanishing hitchhiker, or to La Llorona, the weeping woman of Hispanic folklore. Their origin stories are different, sure, but they all share that core theme of tragic loss and an endless ghostly search. Folklorists actually have a name for this. It's called a migratory legend pattern, where the same basic story shows up in totally different cultures, just with local details swapped in.
And across all these legends, you see the same powerful ideas pop up again and again. It always starts with a tragic, often violent death. The ghost is almost always defined by that iconic white dress and is tied to a specific haunted spot. But underneath it all is this deep, deep sense of unresolved sorrow. These aren't just spooky stories. They're cautionary tales, warning us to be careful on dark roads or near lonely waters. So how does a story like this survive for 100, maybe even 200 years? Well, the secret ingredient isn't just fear. It's also fun, specifically the kind of fun that teenagers have on a dark night. Believe it or not, for generations, teenagers in Owego have kept the White Lady alive by pranking people. They actually dress up in white and stand by the road to scare drivers. But think about it for a second. This isn't just a simple joke. To pull off a convincing prank, you have to know the legend inside and out. The prank itself becomes a performance, a kind of ritual that retells and reinforces the story for a whole new generation. And there's actually a sociological term for this kind of thrill. It's called eye-links play. It's any kind of play that's all about getting a sudden shock or feeling disoriented, that moment of delightful terror. Think about spinning around until you're dizzy, or the jump scare in a horror movie. For the teens on Devil's Elbow, the prank is a rite of passage, creating that perfect, dizzying shock that kind of blurs the line between legend and reality. And the key to that prank, The central image of the entire legend is, of course, the white dress. We know who she is and what she does, but that brings up a really crucial question. Why a white lady? What is so powerful about that specific color? The white dress is just a masterstroke of symbolic storytelling. It immediately signals innocence, purity. It's the color of life's absolute happiest moments, a wedding, a prom. By putting the ghost in white, the legend creates this stark contrast between a life that was full of promise and the brutal violence that cut it short. It just makes the tragedy feel so much deeper. And, there is a specific historical reason for this. The whole tradition of a white wedding dress really took off after Queen Victoria wore one back in 1840. That event basically cemented the white gown in our cultural imagination as the ultimate symbol of hope, love, and a joyful future. Everything this ghost has lost. Okay, so let's tie all of these different threads together. The White Lady isn't just a simple, spooky story you tell around a campfire. She's actually doing important cultural work for the communities that keep her memory alive. See, these ghosts act as living memorials, making sure that real tragedies don't get forgotten. They are walking, talking cautionary tales. But it's more than that. They embody unresolved injustice. And in a really strange way, by haunting us, they remind us of all the hopes for safety and happiness that were denied to them in life. And this really gets to the central paradox of the ghost. As historian Judith Richardson puts it so perfectly, she is both vestige and novelty. She's a relic of the past, but she's constantly being updated for the present. She's a powerful, terrifying force, but she's also a passive story, possessed and reshaped by every single person who tells it. So, in the end, the White Lady isn't just one ghost. She's an archetype, a story that we shape to reflect our own fears and our own values. And that makes you wonder, doesn't it? What ghosts haunt your town? And maybe more importantly, what forgotten histories and hidden warnings are they still trying to share with you?